right, I wanted to make sure that everybody understands the stages of HIV infection. So essentially what happens from the moment that you're exposed to HIV until the later stages of infection when people inevitably die. And so what happens initially is the first stage is called the acute stage. Okay, now within this acute stage, for the first 10 days, you're actually in what is called the eclipse period. This is where you have been exposed to the virus is replicating, but it's actually undetectable. You have quite low viral loads in your body at this point. After the eclipse period is when we really enter into the acute phase. This is where, depending on the test that we would use, the virus would be detectable, and you are going to often be symptomatic. The symptoms here are generally non-specific and sort of mild, so many people report flu-like symptoms. There's nothing indicative of the fact that you have been infected with HIV. You can have aches and pains, you can have headaches, you can have nausea, you might have swollen lymph nodes. As we go through the acute phase, inevitably what you end up with is very high viral loads. This is particularly dangerous because during the acute phase, the vast majority of people have no idea that they have been infected with HIV, and yet this is one of the most contagious stages. Okay, the second phase is clinical latency. This is where your immune system has actually managed to get control of the virus. And so you have this sort of balance at this stage between the immune system and the viral levels. This is where we start talking about a viral set point, this sort of rather steady amount of virus that you'll have in your bloodstream for the period of clinical latency. Now, in an unmedicated person, clinical latency is usually going to last 10 years or less. With the current medications that we have, the antiretroviral medications that we have, clinical latency can easily last 20 to 30 years. It actually can do pretty miraculous things. It's not impossible that you can transmit during the clinical latency period, but it is unusual, especially if your viral set point is quite low, okay? Now, towards the end of clinical latency, what's going to happen is your immune system is going to start to lose control of that virus, okay? Because even though the viral levels are low in clinical latency, especially in medicated individuals, what is happening as you undergo rounds of viral replication is that virus is increasing in genetic diversity. And so this is making it harder, especially the longer that we go on, for your immune system to adapt to the changing genetics of the virus. Stage 3 is actually where we have AIDS, so acquired immune deficiency syndrome. And so one thing I want to make sure you guys understand is that in stages 1 and 2, you are HIV positive, you do not have AIDS, okay? HIV is the infectious agent. Being HIV positive means the virus is in your body. AIDS is the third stage of progression of the disease. So you can be HIV positive and not have AIDS, okay? AIDS is often classified by a particular level of destruction of your immune system. So one thing that we might look at are levels of those CD4 positive T cells that have fallen below 200 cells per cubic millimeter or per microliter. This means that you are significantly immunocompromised, you are immunodeficient at this period, and we can have a variety of symptoms here. You can have a lot of opportunistic infections, fungal infections, certain types of cancers that are unusual in healthy individuals. There are also types of wasting syndromes as well as neurological defects that can go along as the virus expands. Again, here we have really high viral loads, and someone would be quite contagious during this period. Average life expectancy after somebody converts to AIDS is about 3 years. So if we look carefully at what goes on during this period with the virus itself, you become infected, viral loads start to increase, And as this happens, you're building an immune response. The initial immune response, your immune system takes a little bit of a hit, but then it manages to respond quite effectively for a period of time. As it responds effectively, the viral loads will decrease and they can stay low for a period of time. So this would be the eclipse in the acute phases. This would be our clinical latency. As viral diversity continues to increase, eventually your immune system is going to lose control of the virus. That's when your T cells are going to take a massive hit for reasons that we'll talk about in the next video. And so here what you have again, very high viral loads during AIDS, very high viral loads at points during the acute infection, very low levels of T cells once somebody actually has acquired AIDS.